Gosh, for some reason I really wish I had like a spinning chair that I could like dramatically, slowly spin and face you. Since I don't have that, we're gonna have to attempt to start this video in a semi-normal way. So hello there, my name is Genevieve, and if you don't know me, on this channel I have made a few videos about living in Boulder and living in Colorado in general. I'm a Boulder, Colorado native, so I definitely feel like I have some authority on the subject of living in Boulder. And not only that, but I've also lived a few other places, so I have some good perspective on what Boulder is like versus what the rest of the world is like. But before we fully dive into the topics that I want to talk about in terms of the truth of what it's like to live in Boulder, I want to give a couple disclaimers. The first one being, I already made a video called Best Advice for Moving to Boulder, and I posted that back in June 2020, and everything I said in that video is still true. So this video isn't meant to replace anything I said in that video. This video is meant to go a lot deeper into, one, my own personal experience, but then also into some more kind of just deeper, real stuff. So if you haven't watched my video about best advice for moving to Boulder, I suggest that you do that because this video is a great add-on in terms of getting deeper. The next thing I'll say is that I'm going to be making some generalizations in this video, and I know whenever you make a generalization about a place or a thing or whatever, it's not true for everybody. A lot of the things that I'm going to bring up today are popular anecdotes about Boulder that a lot of people know, but also things that I've learned and seen based on my own personal experience of spending so much dang time in this city. The last thing I'll say is that the main goal of this video is to be entertaining and low-key informative. This video is for people who might be considering moving to Boulder and just want some real talk advice, but it's also for people who live in Boulder and want to know that they're not alone in their experiences. And if you are entertained by this video, I would so love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of fun adventures, but then also informational videos like this, and you know, we should keep in touch. Okay, all that being said, let's just jump right into what I have to say about Boulder. I've broken this down into 6 different topics or areas, so let's just start with my very first topic. The very first area that I would like to cover is what I'm just gonna call people and culture. Because places in the world aren't cool just because of their physical location. Obviously, their physical beauty and their physical proximity to certain things and attractions makes the place cool, but that can only take a place so far. What really makes a place really cool and makes it a desirable place that people want to go to and spend time in is the people and the culture of that place. And in this area, I really think Boulder is having a bit of an identity crisis. And I'm going to try to explain this in the least offensive way possible, but we'll see how that goes. Something I've noticed about Boulder is that it's filled with a lot of neurotic personalities. Everyone seems to need a lot, and everyone seems to be very hyper aware of the problems of society and the things that they'd like to fix about the world. There's obviously a very progressive mindset that comes along with that. But the problem about how it tends to manifest in the culture of Boulder is that it can kind of become this very self-absorbed, like progressive, mansplaining, neurotic thing. I really don't know how else to explain it. Everyone in Boulder thinks they're very smart, and a lot of people really are. We are a very intelligent city here. But people in Boulder tend to not be down to earth in the way that you might wish. The people of Boulder are definitely not like salt of the earth people. They tend to be a bit more ivory tower people. And what's difficult about this problem for the people of Boulder is that they are ivory tower people, but they really don't want to be. They like to think that they are like, they know all about the issues. They know how to white-splain, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement to anyone. They're so involved in everything, but they really are viewing it and experiencing it from this kind of ivory tower complex that they have. And it just doesn't make people of Boulder that like fun to be around. Something else I mentioned in my last video about best advice for moving to Boulder is that people are also very friendly but guarded here. And that plays into kind of like the neurotic behavior I was just talking about, where people are very like into themselves and they can be outwardly friendly, but it's usually like not in like a super, again, like not a salt of the earth kind of like down to earth way. It's It's just bizarre. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just weird. And for me, especially after spending so much time, especially in other parts of the United States and even in Europe, I'm just like, why are we like this here? Because another thing that's so interesting about Boulder culture is that the people of Boulder often forget that the rest of the world is really nothing like us here, which makes people of Boulder actually a little bit out of touch. So even though people in Boulder are very well read, or at least they really like to think they are, there's like this just out of touchness in terms of like how to actually relate to people of the world that is just a little bit, it's just not that interesting to be around. And again, like my disclaimer, this isn't everyone. Not everyone in Boulder is like this, especially because we have had a lot of transplants, people moving in, you know, it does kind of shake up the culture a little bit. But it's also that the people who tend to be attracted to moving here are people who are like-minded like the rest of Boulder. So it's kind of like this circle jerk of the same thing over and over again. What am I doing? I don't know. So that's Genevieve's perspective on the people and the culture of Boulder after 30 years of research. All right, on to my next topic, and that is crime. So something very interesting happened in Boulder once the pandemic officially hit back in March 2020. And that is that the local government of Boulder, meaning our city council and our mayor, decided that nobody stays in the jail unless they are a violent felon. No joke, I'm not making this up. Because they were worried about the spread of COVID-19 in the jail, they decided that they wouldn't jail anyone who wasn't like a true threat. Again, do you see how this mentality kind of plays into the people culture thing I just brought up? That there's like this super desire to be progressive, but it's from kind of like this inept, neurotic place where they don't really think things through. And yeah, it leads to some consequences. So since March 2020, crime in Boulder has gone up a lot. And it's mostly things like theft, like breaking into people's cars, stealing bikes. But there have also been like some violent altercations that have happened, and even those things, the people who commit them, they're not really held accountable. I'll give a real life example of a couple walking down the Pearl Street Mall. People who know the Pearl Street Mall, it's like a very busy, active place, and there was a man who was obviously a bit unstable who was also on the Pearl Street Mall, and he just came up and sucker punched the dude who was in this couple, like out of nowhere. And there's tons of witnesses, and of course they call the police, and the police's response is basically like, oh yeah, we know that guy. And they maybe, I think what they did is they took him to jail and then they just drove him back to wherever his camp was, this guy, because that's what they do a lot, is they'll come, they'll pick up whoever was caught as like the thief or the person committing some crime. They take them to jail, and then the jail literally turns them away because they are not allowed by law to book them. So over time, there are people in Boulder who have learned this, and they've learned that they can get away with theft and other crimes because they know that they won't be held accountable for them. And this has been very frustrating and very noticeable for the people of Boulder. At first, people were really finger pointing and blaming the police because they claim the police aren't doing their job. But recently, it's really come to light that the police can only enforce what the laws are. And if the local government has decided that the law is that no one goes to jail unless they've like killed somebody, then, you know, the police can't do much. On top of that, the Boulder PD has had a huge amount of turnover this year since the pandemic hit, but also since, you know, the defund police movements have happened. There has been very low morale, probably not just in Boulder PD, but in, you know, police departments all over. And so funding has been cut, there's been high turnover. So a lot of our police officers now are new people who really don't have a stake in our community here. So there's definitely like this sense of apathy coming from the police department because, yeah, they're overworked maybe, and they also just, yeah, they don't have a stake in like really wanting to keep the community safe. Whereas if our police officers were like from here, they really loved Boulder, like this was their community, you know, there might be a little more, you know, pride or like desire to really like hold crime and justice accountable. But mainly I just blame our city council and mayor. So that's it for crime. Boulder used to be a place where, like growing up, we never locked our doors. It always felt so safe. Whereas now I'm in this kind of mindset where I'm like always on guard, always locking my door. Yeah, and it just doesn't feel very fun to live in Boulder in a place where like it used to feel so safe and now it just doesn't feel safe anymore. All right, are you having fun yet? We're getting into the deep stuff, guys. I told you, it's deeper than deep. I feel like that's what she said, but let's move on. Speaking of that's what she said, the next topic is dating. And this is something that I brought up in my last video about moving to Boulder, and that is that dating in Boulder is difficult. And what's weird about dating in Boulder being difficult is that it's not for a lack of single people in Boulder. I actually think there are a lot of single adults. And also let me pause here to say that when I say dating in Boulder, I mean like dating among adults. I consider like the CU Boulder students, they're kind of their own class. They're also their own culture. They're honestly like their own little subset of humanity within Boulder. Dating for them is going to be a lot different than dating over 25. That's really what I'm referring to here. So it's not for lack of single people, like I said, but it seems to be that the single people who are here are, again, maybe playing a little bit into that like Boulder neuroticness that seems to exist here. Like I know so many attractive guys in Boulder who have outfitted the back of a pickup truck so they can live in it. They're very attractive, but weirdly emotionally wounded. There's like so many guys like that in Boulder. And I've just found through experience that the men who live out of the back of their trucks, oh my God, I can't stop laughing. But the men who live out of the back of their trucks and, you know, are very attractive, but usually a little emotionally wounded, they don't usually make for like a real stable long-term relationship. And I'm sure there's a female equivalent to that stereotype that I just made. Let me think of what that would be. The female equivalent would probably be like a young yoga teacher who just got her certification and, you know, is a free spirit, but also has no money and is just kind of messed up from doing too much coke in college. So for whatever reason, there are single people here, but if your real desire in life is to meet someone and really start like a stable monogamous relationship, for some reason, that's just weirdly difficult to find, especially among the millennial class. I feel like I should say that. This is mostly among like 25 to 35-year-olds. Actually, you know, maybe older than 35 though. Okay, that's enough about dating. Let's move on to diversity. Ooh, diversity. Let's see the comments roll in about whiteness and how whiteness is rightness. What am I doing? I don't know. I say that because I'm referring to another video that I did about things you might not know about living in Colorado, and I mentioned how white Colorado is. And oh my goodness, so many white men came pouring into the comments with lots of explanations about how Boulder, not just Boulder, but Colorado is white and how that's just fine, and how somehow I'm the racist one because I'm insinuating that minorities aren't smart enough to get jobs at tech companies, when I never freaking said that. I just love how they flip it around so weirdly like that. So anyway, touchy topic, but we must talk about it because Boulder is one of the whitest places in all of Colorado. And it's not just white, it is low-key racist. And I say low-key because people aren't like outwardly racist. Like if a black person walked into Whole Foods, people wouldn't be like, you don't belong here. Like no one would like openly say anything to that person. But the way people's body language and the way people treat minorities, you can just sense a huge shift in just the way people are treated. And I'm not saying that just because that's what I think. There have been countless articles and people of color writing blogs and posts about what it's like to be a person of color in Boulder and how freaking challenging it is. And it really makes me angry because, as I've talked about, Boulder tends to be a place that wants to consider itself so progressive and open-minded and really welcoming. But in terms of like real-world acceptance of people of all cultures and ethnicities, Boulder actually really struggles in that area. And to just really drive home what I mean in terms of just how white Boulder is, I've just looked up for all of us the breakdown of the demographics of race in Boulder. And this is from our most recent 2020 census data that we have so far. Boulder is 87% white. The next highest race is technically Asian. That's what it says. Asian is 5.56%. After that, we have two or more races, and that's 3.8%. After that is other race, which is 1.85%. And then finally, being Black or Native American, only 1.16% of Boulder is Black. What's really weird about this is it doesn't say what our Latino population is. The reason that I think diversity is an issue that needs to be talked about is because I think any society that is highly homogenous, meaning there's just one race kind of doing the whole thing and there's no outside influence, I think that's really dangerous. It's much more difficult for a community to evolve, to learn new things, to learn tolerance, and to actually experience what it's like to be in another person's shoes. It's much more difficult to do all those things when there's just one homogenous culture or race that's just sort of dominating everything. And I feel like that is one of the big issues that plays into why I'm not really enjoying the culture of Boulder. It's just gotten so homogenized to be this one thing that never really seems to change and never really seems to solve anything, even though it likes to think that it is. So I'm looking forward to you coming for me in the comments, Stephen. Okay, let's just move on to the next topic. So this wouldn't be a video about Boulder, Colorado if I didn't bring up how expensive and privileged it is. Living in Boulder, Colorado is unreasonably expensive. Yes, we're in a beautiful location. Yes, we're right at the foothills of the mountains that are pretty cool. But there are other locations across Colorado that have similar proximity to the mountains and the foothills as Boulder, and they are not as ridiculously expensive and privileged as Boulder is. Why are we this way? I really don't honestly think Boulder has that much to offer that justifies why it is so expensive. And what I guess is nice is that the average salary in Boulder, Colorado is currently at $73,000, and that is $20,000 more than the US national average salary. So at least we've got that, and that people do tend to make more money in Boulder, probably because we do have so many like tech hub companies that are coming in here. But Boulder is a community that's made of more than just people who work for tech companies. And most people who work in other fields, for example, the public school system here in Boulder, do not make that much money. But the cost of housing here keeps making Boulder more and more exclusive, so that only the people who have the tech company jobs can afford to buy houses and to rent. And it pushes everyone else to try to get more and more creative in terms of how to really live in Boulder. And in hopes of validating why I think the high cost of living in Boulder is not justified, that brings me to my next and I think last point, and that is activities in Boulder. As I've said in my last video about moving to Boulder, Boulder is so great if you really love outdoor activities like skiing and hiking, or if you're like an ultra runner. We got a lot of those here in Boulder. That's really kind of it in terms of what Boulder has to offer. And like I said in my last point, you don't need to live in Boulder to have access to the mountains or to run in Colorado. There are plenty of other beautiful places that are less expensive and also have ample access to lots of nature and mountains and cool trails. But when it comes to things like museums, the arts, even just like having an array of different like restaurants and things to go to, Boulder is pretty limited. And obviously these limits have been even further exacerbated since the pandemic started and really no one is doing like artsy things. But honestly, Boulder has always been limited. When it comes to theater, kind of our one-stop shop place for theater is a place called the Dairy Center, and they did do a really big revamp and remodeling a few years ago, and that has really helped, I think, bring more attention to theater. And the same goes for music. Like we have the Fox Theater, which is like an interesting music venue, but still, like we're not getting that much stuff coming through Boulder, especially if you're someone who wants to be personally involved in some sort of arts community. It's just difficult in Boulder. Like we have one modern art museum, and I feel like the one time I walked in there, I just got looks like, why are you in here? So for whatever reason, the arts community in Boulder is not like welcoming. It's like something that the rich do to sort of like placate themselves, but it's not something that like regular people can really get involved in unless they're like really pushing to get in there. Whereas in other cities, it is so easy to enmesh yourself in some kind of arts community. In Boulder, it's not. So it's at this point in the video that you may be at home asking yourself, well, if you hate Boulder so much, why don't you leave? And to that I say, thank you so much for your question, Stephen. I do plan on leaving. I really can't justify at this point in my life staying in a place like Boulder. I was born and raised here. I've obviously spent a lot of time here, and I have that kind of like nostalgic heart connection to here. We also have something in Boulder called Chief Niwot's Curse. And that is that Chief Niwot cursed the white people of Boulder who settled on his land and said that anyone who moves to Boulder will never be able to leave. Something like that. And a lot of people have felt the effects of Chief Niwot's curse, and that we try to leave Boulder, and for whatever reason, we just like keep coming back. And I am definitely one of those people. And it might be my comfort here because I just know it so well. It might be because I really do love the mountains so much. But there's just something that sometimes it makes it hard for me to leave. But I'm finally at a point in my life where I'm truly over it, Boulder. I'm just over it. It's time for us to break up. I'm done. But my personal problem is that I'm not fully committed yet to where I want to move next. I think I'm 90% sure that I would like to try moving to Austin, Texas, but I feel like that is the most cliche place that I could possibly want to move because everyone and their mom is moving to Austin, Texas right now. But I really love Austin. I love the weather there. That's one thing I personally also don't like about Boulder, is that I really don't like winter. There's a lot of people here obviously that love winter. It's like their thing. But for me, I never got into winter. I'm just not a winter person. So I'm like, why do I live somewhere where it snows? I should move somewhere where it's like fairly temperate all year round. So Austin is where I would like to go, but I'm also really curious to get feedback from you guys. Knowing me and knowing that I don't like winter, and also knowing that I really don't want to move somewhere like Southern California where it's also so dang expensive, where should I move? Because I don't know yet. And if you're watching this because you have been considering moving to Boulder, I hope that I effectively depressed you. Because it's totally still possible to move to Boulder and love it. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, you might have a totally different experience of Boulder than I have had. You might move here, luck out, find the love of your life, find the cheapest apartment ever. Like, I don't know, your life might just become magic. It's just, you never know. But I think it's really important for you, if you do want to move to Boulder, that you consider these things, and then also don't move to Boulder. If you want to move to Colorado, there are a million cooler places to move in Colorado. Honestly, my top two are Denver and the Denver metro area. There's like a lot of cool suburbs around Denver, like Arvada, Littleton I like a lot too, although Littleton is also kind of expensive. Just lots of cool places. And then I also would recommend Fort Collins. Fort Collins is really cool. Honestly, guys, I would only move to Boulder if you had a very specific reason that you had to move here. Like if you have a specific job that you need to come here for, or like a school program you need to come here for. If you don't have like an extremely specific reason to move to Boulder, do not move to Boulder. Just don't. All right, there you go. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please let me know what you guys think of this video, what your thoughts are about Boulder in the comments below. Steven, I so look forward to your comments about whiteness. But most of all, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed my personality. If you didn't enjoy my personality, I'm really sorry for whatever trauma has happened to you that caused you to not like me. Oh my gosh, it's hard to say that with a straight face. But anyway, I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much.